In this video, we'll build a scored quiz in involveme using score-based outcomes. You'll learn how to set up scoring, send visitors to different result pages based on their score, and use the calculator element to turn that score into more useful results. Let's get started. In this tutorial, we'll build a course launch readiness quiz using the score-based outcomes funnel type in involveme. Visitors will answer 5 questions about launching an online course, and their score will send them to one of 3 result pages. Let me walk you through the quiz funnel first. The funnel starts with a welcome page, followed by 5 multiple-choice questions about launching an online course. After the questions, we have a lead capture page where visitors enter their name and email before seeing the final result. Then, based on their score, they land on one of 3 outcome pages: beginner, intermediate, or expert. Each outcome page has its own message based on the visitor. For this setup, we'll use the score-based outcomes funnel type because the final result depends on the participant's score. Later in the tutorial, we'll also set up the calculator element to do more with the quiz score. Now let's look at how scoring works in a score-based outcomes funnel. When we click on a question, we can see the scoring options in the settings panel. Before we set the correct answers, let's quickly look at the scoring options in involveme. Randomize answers simply shuffles the answer options for each visitor. This only changes the display order. It does not affect the score. Then we have individual score and calculation. This is useful when you need more control over how answers are scored. For example, some answers can be worth more points than others. So instead of treating every answer the same, you can decide how much each answer contributes to the final score. Under each answer, we have correct and value. Correct is used for quiz-style questions where there is a right answer. It lets involveme count how many questions the participant answered correctly. Value is used when you want an answer to add points to the overall score. For this tutorial, we're building a knowledge quiz, so we'll focus on the correct toggle and mark the right answer for each question. We'll go through the questions one by one, select the correct answer option, and turn on Correct in the settings panel. Later, in the outcome settings, we'll use the total number of correct answers to decide which result page each visitor sees. Now we'll open outcome settings and choose how involveme should calculate the outcome. At the top, we can choose the scoring mode. Individual score uses the total of all point values assigned to the participant's answers. Correctly answered questions counts how many questions the visitor answered correctly. Custom score calculation is for more advanced formulas when you need full control over how the score is calculated. So for this tutorial, we'll select correctly answered questions because we want the outcome to depend on how many questions the visitor gets right. Now that correctly answered questions is selected, we can set the ranges for each result. Since this quiz has 5 questions, the highest possible score is 5. Visitors who score between 0 and 2 will see the beginner result. Visitors who score 3 or 4 will see the intermediate result. And visitors who score 5 out of 5 will see the expert result. Once these ranges are set, involveme will show the right outcome page based on the visitor's final score. Then we'll save the outcome settings. Now each outcome page has a score element, so visitors can see how many questions they answered correctly. This already gives visitors the basic result, but the calculator element helps us turn that result into a more meaningful takeaway. We'll add a calculator element to each outcome page and use it to turn the same quiz score into a more helpful number. For example, on one outcome page, we can show the score as a percentage. On another, we can show how close the visitor is to the next level. And on another, we can show a simple estimate based on their result. Now we'll set up the calculator element for the beginner outcome page. In the settings panel, we'll replace the default text with the message we want visitors to see. For this example, the calculator will show an estimated time to launch, so we'll change the text before the result to estimated time to your launch. Next, we'll add weeks as the text after the result. We'll also keep decimal places set to none, so the result shows as a whole number. Now that the text is ready, we'll open the formula builder. This is where we create the calculation that controls the number shown on the page. The formula builder opens with the existing formula inside. We'll clear this first, so we can build the new formula from scratch. On the left, you can see all 5 quiz questions. Each question can be added to the formula, so we can use the visitor's quiz answers in the calculation. We'll build the formula using the 5 question scores from the quiz. The formula is simple. We start with 12, which represents the estimated number of weeks someone might need if they are starting from the beginning. Then we add the 5 question scores together to get the visitor's total score. For every correct answer, we subtract 2 weeks from the estimate. So if someone gets 0 correct answers, they see 12 weeks. If they get 1 correct answer, they see 10 weeks. If they get 2 correct answers, they see 8 weeks. The number updates automatically based on each visitor's quiz result. Once the formula is valid, we'll save it. If you're not sure how to build the formula manually, involveme's Create with AI option makes the process much easier. Simply describe what you want the formula to do in plain language. The AI will then generate the formula for you, which is especially helpful for more advanced calculations. Now the calculator element is set up on the beginner outcome page. It will automatically show each visitor an estimated launch timeline based on their quiz score. Then we'll click Save and Close. Next, on the intermediate outcome page, we'll click on the calculator element below the score. For this page, we want to show visitors how close they are to reaching the expert result. First, we'll update the calculator text .in text before. We'll enter the text correct answers away from expert. We'll then leave text after empty, because we only want to show the number. We'll also keep decimal places set to none, so the result stays clean and easy to read. Once that's ready, we'll click Open Formula Builder to create the calculation. Inside the formula builder, we'll first clear the default formula so we can create the calculation for this page. The formula is based on a simple idea. Expert requires 5 correct answers, so we take 5 and subtract the visitor's score to show how close they are. So if someone scored 4, they are 1 correct answer away. If someone scored 3, they are 2 correct answers away. Once the formula is valid, we'll save it. Now, the intermediate outcome page will automatically show how close each visitor is to the expert result. So instead of only showing their score, this page gives them a more motivating result and encourages them to keep improving. On the expert outcome page, we'll use the calculator element to turn the visitor's score into a percentage. Since this page is for people who reached the expert result, we'll show the result as 100% instead of repeating the score as 5 out of 5. First, we'll update the text before the result. In text before, we'll type your readiness score. Then, in text after, we'll add the percentage symbol. We'll keep decimal places set to none, so the percentage shows as a whole number. Then we'll open the formula builder to create the calculation. Inside the formula builder, we'll first clear the default formula. Now we can build the percentage calculation from scratch using the 5 question scores from the quiz. Here, we calculate the percentage by taking the visitor's score, dividing it by the maximum score, which is 5, and multiplying it by 100. This turns the quiz score into a percentage, so if someone gets all 5 answers correct, the calculator will show 100%. Since the formula is valid, we can proceed and save it. Now, the expert outcome page shows both the original score and the percentage version. Once everything looks good, we'll click Save and Close. Now let's test the quiz as a visitor. We'll click Preview and answer the quiz in a way that gives us the beginner result. The visitor answers the quiz, then reaches the contact form where they will provide first name, last name, and their email address before seeing their result. Here, they enter their contact details, submit the form, and the result page appears. In this test, the visitor got 2 out of 5 answers correct, so they land on the beginner outcome page. The score element shows the raw result, and below that, The calculator element shows the estimated launch timeline, 8 weeks. The calculator uses the formula we created earlier. A visitor starts at 12 weeks, and each correct answer removes 2 weeks. Since this visitor got 2 correct answers, the estimate becomes 8 weeks. Now we'll test what happens when a visitor lands on the intermediate result. Once again, the visitor answers the quiz, submits their contact details, and the result page appears. For this test, the visitor got 3 out of 5 answers correct, so they land on the intermediate outcome page. The score element confirms their result by displaying it. Below that, the calculator element uses the formula we set up to show how many more correct answers the visitor needs to reach expert. Here, the visitor scored 3 out of 5, so they are 2 correct answers away from the expert result. Lastly, we'll test the expert outcome result. This time, the visitor goes through the quiz and answers all 5 questions correctly. After submitting their first name, last name, and their email address, they are taken to the expert outcome page. Here, we can see the score element showing 5 out of 5. Below that, the calculator element uses the formula we created earlier to turn the score into a percentage. Since the formula takes the total score, divides it by 5, and multiplies it by 100, a perfect score becomes 100%. This confirms that the expert outcome, the score, and the calculator are all working as expected. And that's it. We've built a scored quiz using score-based outcomes in involveme. We set up the questions, marked the correct answers, created score ranges for beginner, intermediate, and expert, and tested each result. We also used the calculator element to turn the same score into more useful results, like a launch timeline, a progress score, and a percentage. Now you can use the same setup to build your own scored quiz, assessment, or knowledge test in involveme.